Hey guys, it's Justine here from I Should Read That, and today I'm going to do my spoiler-free review of one of my most highly anticipated books of 2019. This is The Priory of the Orange Tree by Samantha Shannon. I've been waiting for this book for like 18 months. Ever since I heard about it and heard what it was going to be about, I knew I had to get my hands on it. And it came out on the 26th of February, so only a couple weeks ago, and I finished it this morning, and I have a lot of thoughts on it that I wanted to share. I've been thinking about doing a spoiler review on this as well, so if you want to see that, let me know, because a lot of those thoughts do come with spoilers, so I'm going to do my best to kind of try to give you an idea of my thoughts on this book, but some of them I just can't talk about here, so let me know if you want me to do that in another video. Just a couple of things to get started. This is not a book that was gifted to me. Try as I might to get an early copy, I did not. This is my pre-ordered copy that I bought myself, and also, as far as I know, she has not released a pronunciation guide. So a lot of these names I'm probably saying completely wrong, but they're fantasy names, and I'm doing my best, so bear with me. Priory of the Orange Tree is an adult fantasy novel that is quite complicated. It's quite complex, but everything in this book comes down to this one particular myth. What you believe in terms of what happened in this myth and what happened afterwards really depends on where you're from in this book, but I'm gonna go with the Inyas version because we spend the most time there, and I feel like that's just gonna be the easiest way to go. So essentially, there was about 1,000 years ago a dragon called the Nameless One, very scary, fire-breathing dragon who was bent on destruction. He was going to destroy the world and all of humanity. Then a man named Galen Barethnet banished the dragon, and as long as one of his heirs, a daughter from his line, sits on the throne of Inyas, the Nameless One will forever be bound. He will not be able to rise again. So that's kind of the Inyas version of this tale, but of course, as in real life, every sort of country has their own version of this sort of story that happened 1,000 years ago. So you can probably tell already, just based on this particular myth and based on the religions that have sprung up around it, the world building in this book is exquisite. It's beautifully executed, and I think that if you want to know what good fantasy world building looks like, you need to look no further than Priory of the Orange Tree. And I think that a lot of this is due to the fact that this is a long book. She had the time to put in the detail of all of these different cultures and religions and these different kingdoms because she had the space. She was able to do it, and this is one of the reasons that I love long fantasy books so much. You get the descriptions of the food and the clothing and everything, but you really get the taste and the flavor of this particular world, and I loved that so much. I loved every single kingdom that we visit. It's all so incredibly distinctive, and it has almost like each place has a flavor of a different country in our real world, and I really enjoyed that. I feel like Inyas is definitely England. It's definitely Britain. I don't know if this is actually her intention or not, but it felt very British, and of course this myth is based on St. George and the Dragon, which is a British tale. I could read like history books based on Priory of the Orange Tree. I would read like textbooks based on this world. It was so beautifully done. My fantasy reader confession is that I don't like dragons. I really don't like dragons, and it's not like I will avoid books that have dragons in them. Obviously I did not avoid this one, but for the most part I tend to find them very boring. I actually quite like the Game of Thrones type dragons that are just these huge scary beasts, but I don't like, for the most part, the kind of hyper-intelligent Aragon type dragons that are like, you know, so much better than everyone else. Maybe it's just, I don't know, some kind of complex that I have, but I tend to not find dragons interesting. So when I say that I loved the dragons in Priory of the Orange Tree, that means a lot, because I do not enjoy books with dragons. I really love the fact that they felt diverse. There was a mix, there was a combination. They're not all the same, which I really loved. They were just cool. They were really cool, and I love the way that although they were obviously a big part of the story and sort of obviously like the Nameless One and his draconic army and everything, I love the fact that the entire book didn't rest on dragons. Dragons were kind of a secondary part of it, and that was really great for me. I'm actually gonna put this down because it's really heavy. It's like 800 pages. of dragon, and it's a bit much to hold up for like 15 minutes. So I think that where some of my issues with the book came in were where there was a lot of coincidence. There are a lot of, you can call it divine intervention, you can call it fate, you can call it whatever you like, but there was a lot of coincidence that happened in terms of the way events unfolded, how people met, all of this stuff, and that's not really something that I enjoy all that much. And I also have some issues with the way that the book ended, which I'm not going to go into here. I did take issue with some of the characters in this book, and it's funny because there's two ends of the spectrum in this book in terms of characters. There's I would die for you, you are my favorite character ever, and there is I don't like you, you're just not the kind of character that I love. So it's like both ends of the spectrum, and everywhere in between. This book has a massive, massive cast of characters, and they range from different areas of the world with different religions and different beliefs, and they also range in different levels of social class, which I thought was really interesting. We don't just focus on the nobility, on the queen, as tempting as that may be, and her kind of noble household. We really follow everyone. The Priory of the Orange Tree has 4 points of view. The first one, who she kind of feels like the main character in a way, is Iad. Iad is the I will die for you character. I love Iad so much. She's everything that I want from a female character. And she does tend to stray into not like other girls territory a little bit, but to be fair, she's not like other girls, so she kind of is like, I'll give her a pass on that. But Iad is a young woman who's originally from the south, and she goes to the court of Queen Sabran IX in Ineos, and she is sort of presented as you know, here's a new lady in waiting for you. So she is not really a lady in waiting, and this is all revealed super, super early on, so this is not a spoiler. She is essentially, without the queen's knowledge, a bodyguard to the queen, because she has fully dedicated her life to ensuring that the Nameless One does not rise, and her job is to protect the queen, at least until she has an heir, because Queen Sabran is unmarried and does not have a child. Iad is the best, and I knew I was gonna love her, because in the opening pages of her point of view, which is very early on in the book, it's like page 10 or something, she's like crouched in the rafters watching an assassin trying to get into the queen's bedroom to murder her, and she's just kind of like, oh, this one's getting a lot further than the rest of them have, and then jumps down and stabs him, and it's awesome. I really loved her. She's just like, she's everything that I want a female character, a badass female character to be. She's very intelligent and she's very loyal. She can kind of back up her claims of being super awesome and badass, because she shows again and again that she's extremely capable. She's an extremely intelligent woman, and she also has a very open mind, and I really, really loved that. Another point of view character that I really liked was Loth, and Loth is I believe he's an earl, and he is the queen's best friend, and they've been best friends from childhood, and in his opening pages of his point of view, he is sent away from court by sort of the spy master, because, to be perfectly frank, he's getting in the way of the queen's marriage prospects, because there's all these rumors swirling around that they're secretly married, or he's her lover, and all of this. So without the queen's knowledge, he's kind of sent away on this dangerous mission, which he is not expected to return. And what I find really interesting, and this is probably going to be something that a lot of people like completely disagree with me on or whatever, but this is how I feel. This is my take on it, and I don't know if this is intentional, but for me, Loth kind of fulfills the traditional sidekick female role in a lot of adult fantasy, because in a lot of adult fantasy, it's very male dominated, but there's like the one kick-ass woman who kind of has this journey of realization, and she has to fight, she's super emotional and all of this. And that's Loth. That's him to a T. That's exactly what he is in this book. And to me, he embodies that sidekick female so incredibly well. I don't know if that was intentional on Samantha Shannon's part or not, but it was really, really interesting to see her flip that character trope. The other 2 point of view characters are the ones I cared a little bit less for. So we have Nikolai Rus, who is a aging alchemist. He had come to the court long before the book began and told the queen that he could make her immortal, essentially. And this was a sham, this was not real, a scam. And he was kicked out and he was banished. So we follow him for a bit. And then we also follow this character named Tane. And Tane is the character that I really did not like. She was the low point of the book for me. And I've been trying to figure out why. And I think it's because she is both very self-righteous and she's very serious. I can handle these two things kind of separately, but there's something about this combination and her character and her background that just did not work for me. Tane is an orphan and she was raised to become an apprentice dragon rider. So she is in the East and she opens the book basically, and something happens and she has to make a decision to either be selfish or not be selfish. And just that spirals for me, and she just didn't work for me. She didn't click with me. And I think that I realized this because it's not like an in-your-face kind of, I really don't like you kind of thing for me. It was a more subtle, I'm just not interested in this character, I don't like this character. And I realized it when I would blast through all of Iad's chapters and be like, yes, 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 and then get to one of Tane's chapters, and then I'd pick up my phone for like 20 minutes. And it happened every single time I got to one of her chapters, and I began to realize that she just wasn't a character for me, which I have a feeling that other people are going to really love her. It's just she didn't click with me. In fact, she didn't click with me until about 650 pages in to this 800-page book. And even then I was like, I like you more now, but I still don't really like you. And the fact that she was a POV character didn't really do it for me. So that was really a shame. There are a lot of other characters, tons of other characters in this book. But the standout one for me, who was not Iad, was Queen Sabrin. Just like, what an incredibly nuanced, wonderful character, especially as a queen. Because I feel like you don't often get that kind of, you don't get this kind of character from fantasy queens very often, I think. And I loved it. I loved her so, so much. So I think what worked for me really well with Sabrin, which is great because she is one of the most important characters in the book, is the fact that she's young, she's about 25, 28, and she has basically the weight of the world on her shoulders. In order to save the world, to keep the Nameless One bound, she has to basically get married and have a daughter. And that kind of pressure is somewhat insane. And she, when the book opens, a huge part of her conflict is the fact that she does not want to get married and she doesn't really want to have a kid, but she needs to do this. She must do this. She has no choice but to do this. And she will do her royal duty. She just will not like it very much. Her character was so good, and the development that she undergoes over the course of the story, she's a very different person by the time the story ends. It was just like, it was so good. She was amazing. She and Iad are like the best. They're my favorite characters possibly in like at least recent fantasy. They're just like, they're so good. I won't rant about them anymore. I feel like in this review I just didn't really get the chance to talk about some of the other issues that I had with the book, but again, that's because of spoilers. So if you would like to talk about some of those things, definitely DM me on Twitter or something like that, because I would really love to have someone to chat with about those. I ended up giving this book 4 out of 5 stars. I completely expected it to be like 5-star, completely blew my mind book, and it wasn't, but it was excellent. It was very, very, very good. So if you are interested in adult fantasy books, if you're interested in complex female characters, if you're interested in court intrigue and politics and religion, if you're interested in basically anything that has to do with fantasy, I would highly recommend picking up this book. Don't be daunted by its size. Everyone is like, oh my god, it's huge. It's not that big, and it is very heavy to carry around, but it flies by so quickly. I actually ended up buying the Kindle edition of this book because it was on discount and it just made it so much easier to read. So if that helps, I would definitely recommend that. But it's not a hard read. It's not going to take a huge amount of time if you really kind of get into the story. And I would suggest reading it because it is very, very good. And I hope that this is one of those books that kind of changes the publishing landscape, because I want more stuff like this. I want long feminist fantasy, and I want like super kind of traditional feeling fantasy, but written by women and about women, because it was just so incredibly good in that aspect. Hello, it's Editing Justine. I had such a hard time trying to put my thoughts into words in this review that I actually forgot to mention two very, very important things. The first one being one of my favorite aspects of the book is the romance. This book has such a wonderful, amazing, slow burn romance that I loved so much. And if you know anything about this book, you may know that it does have a lesbian romance in it. It was beautiful, and it was magical, and it was slow burn, and it was just like, yes, yes. The other thing that I wanted to mention really quickly is that there is a content warning for miscarriage in this book. It's pretty heartbreaking, so if that's something that you want to avoid, just a heads up that it is in this book. Okay, bye. In the comments below, I would love to hear what you thought of Priory of the Orange Tree, or if it's in your TBR, or, you know, if you've just been hearing about it everywhere and have no idea what it's about. Definitely drop me a comment. I would love to chat with you. I post bookish content to this channel fairly frequently, so hit subscribe, check back soon, and I will see you next time.